So the first point is that the woman needs to be present in the Seder in every respect. The mitzvahs of Haggadah and Achilas Matzah apply to them as equally as it applies to women, which is actually an interesting question. A question we always ask, for example, we asked, I remember last week we asked the Gira candidates, the woman, do you need to eat matzah on Pesach? And she thought about it for a minute, she said yes. And we said, why? But it's a mitzvah saseh shazman groba. What's your answer, gentlemen? It's eine gute Frage, nein? Okay, I'll put you out of your misery. It is because the Gemara says, Kol sheyeshnoi bebal teichel chometz, isa be teichel matzah. Very much like Shabbos, where, although Shabbos is also Zman Groma, but women are mechuyev in the mitzvah, the only mitzvah, which is min haTorah on Shabbos, which is
Kiddush.
You're very hesitant, and you're absolutely right. Don't we say, of course, Kiddush, Zocher. And that's because Zocher v'Shomer, Kol sheyeshna b'shmira, yeshna b'zchira. Because they are said together, because they are connected, Zocher v'Shomer b'dibur echad. That means anybody who's included in the Shomer, the negative, the Leisa say women, which women of course are like all the others, then they are equally included in the Zocher. So they have a mitzvah of Kiddush min haTorah, which creates all sorts of interesting shaylas. Once you learn Reish Ayin Aleph, the man comes home from shul Friday night where min haTorah he's been yotze b'dibur and the woman hasn't yet. So how can he be motzi her? Ayin sham b'bir halacha. That's a separate shmooze. But for Pesach, we have where the Torah connects, so it says together and indicates that they are connected. The Issur of eating chametz and the mitzvah of eating matzah are put together, and therefore anybody who is included in do not eat chametz is included in the thou shalt eat matzah, and therefore all the mitzvahs halayla, min haTorah and midrabanan are equally incumbent on a woman. And therefore, if she is going to be machmir, there is such a thing, chumras hanoshim b'Pesach. But if you're going to be machmir, to the point or to the extent that you're not able to be mentally, kal v'chomer, physically present on Seder night and be and engage in the mitzvahs halayla properly, then it's a chumra da'asilidei kula. So you need to know for the women, or equally for the men who get involved in cleaning and being boidek, there's no point killing yourself for things which are absolutely unnecessary, and then you're not able to be mekayim the mitzvah halayla, which that's not good. You need to keep things in context. Rav Moshe Feinstein is reported to have said, if he had an hour to clean the house, he would spend 45 minutes on the kitchen and 15 minutes on the rest of the house. And I used to do, I can do it now for you. If I was to be boidek this room for chametz, okay? I can be boidek this room for chametz right now. Okay, let's say not talking about going into all the cupboards and seeing what there is there, but I'll be boidek the floor area for chametz. Okay, just give me a second. It's in there, but yeah, this floor is now being checked for chametz. Done. Game over. Finished. Surprised?
No.
Why? What am I doing? And I actually used to get up and do that. It's a good, powerful demonstration, because notice I didn't sweep, I didn't hoover or mop or anything like that. Not just for fear of ruining my reputation, but because, as we're going to see, what you're looking for is chametz. Chametz is not dirt. It's the first thing. Dirt is not chametz. Chametz is not dirt. You are looking for a kazayas of edible chametz. Or, if it's less than a kazayas, and it is, I quote, we're going to see in the Bir Halacha, metunaf ktsas. If it is somewhat, let me give you the Hagdara. This is really, really important. There are two separate isurim, and we must never forget that. One is owning, and one is eating. So the owning bit is really quite easy, in this sense. Let's talk about the floor area of this room. I'm not talking about whether there might be a biscuit on the shelf, although it would take me another 3 minutes to do, right? We're not talking about the owning bit, because to disown, as if it isn't a gluska yofa, as the Gemara says, right? If it isn't a nice cake, if it's something insignificant, if it's less than a kazayas, and or it is somewhat dirty, the biur and the bittul of the chametz is not a problem. You're not going to change your mind. You're not going to forget and eat it. Now, when was the last time you picked up some crumbs from the floor? When was the last time you picked up, let's say, a bisli, one bisli? When was the last time you picked up a bisli from the floor and ate it? I hope the last time you were two and a half. Okay? What is the likelihood of it entering the food chain, being on the floor, a single bisli? 0. So the eating, remember there's 2 isurim, eating chametz and owning chametz. The owning chametz, I think we can rely on your bittul of a dirty single bisli on the floor. And I've checked, there isn't. So there isn't even that. So what are there? Crumbs? Crumbs are not chametz. And even if they are chametz, they're dirty, they're less than the gazayas, I don't want them, I'm mevatel them. I don't need to sweep this, I do not need to sweep the floor for Pesach. I'm done, this floor is done. I'm not saying we shouldn't, we do. But remember that is, and I'm going to show you that inside, okay? What did you want to ask? I have to show you them as chorus, what? You can see chametz on Pesach. Your chametz may not be seen in your possession. I say it again.
If you sell your chametz, you have to hide it.
Well, you don't have to hide it as such. You need to put it in a place, number one, where it is clearly identifiable for the Gentile owner that he can come and consume his whiskey on Pesach. And number two, we need to make sure that you don't forget. As the Gemara says, one of the concerns are chametz lebedilim and ekolashata. Person, we want to make sure that you don't wander down in the morning, half asleep, and forget that it's Pesach and pull the Weetabix out of the cupboard. The guy's Weetabix doesn't matter. You're not allowed to eat anybody's chametz. So besides for stealing from him, so therefore what you do is you close up the cupboard, you put a label on it, and that will remind you, so you'll know. If it's a see-through glass cupboard, but the sellotape on it and a big sticker saying chametz, that's fine. You can look and stare at your whiskey collection all day. Not a problem. Okay? Good. It can be your Einig Yom Tov, technically, if you want. Or probably not, because you can't, tsar, because you can't have any of it. Okay? So, seriously, now, so the Bedikas chametz is something, what are we looking for? So you've got to know what you're looking for. And this we're going to see inside. But the first point we've got here is Chayev Adam Liyos Sameach V'Toiv Leiv B'Moyed. You have to be in a good mood. Simcha on Yom Tov. There's no Simcha on Shabbos. You know there's no mitzvah of Simcha on Shabbos. But there's Simcha on Yom Tov. Hu V'Ishtay, says the Mechaber, V'chol HaNilvim Eilov Ketzan Mesamchon, HaKtanim Noislam Lehem Klois V'Goizim. Right? Ktanim, you've got to give them nice food. Noshim Koinelhem Begodim V'Tachshitin Kefim Amoinai. Rabbi say, you're newly married, you have to make sure you buy your wife something nice for Yom Tov. Whether it's a jewelry, it's a garment or something, that is an important mitzvah. Yeah? Okay? And says the Mishnah Berurah, V'hu mitzvahs asay min ha-Torah. Chayev adam liyasamech, v'hu mitzvahs asay min ha-Torah, d'chsiv v'samachto b'chagecha. So mitzvah min ha-Torah to be sameach b'chag. Don't forget that. Okay? Now, chametz. Mida oiraisa. And you can see we can go through the notes here as we're going through it. Okay? Chametz is not dirt. You don't need to start cleaning the ceilings, the tops of cupboards. Where chametz has not gone before, let's say drawers where you only keep sheets or towels or something, technically they don't need to be checked. Upstairs generally just needs a hoover. Only places that needs real attention is the kitchen. You remove chametz, not dirt. Chametz is not dirt. Okay? Very important. let's have a look. Before we do the notes, let's I'll leave you with the English notes, but let's do the sources inside. Source 3. Let's do this. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah Tov Mem Zayin. Mida Oiraisa Harei Havachometz Kishar Isurim Shenisarvu She'enon Oisrin Taruvoson Elo Kedei Litin Tam B'Taroivas. Min HaTorah, Chometz is like any other Issa that it is only Asur B'Noisein Tam, which means if it is less than 1 in 60. Okay? B'Noisein Tam. Dahainu al Ashishim and Shachachomim Echmiru Bay. Midrabanon Chometz, we all familiar with the idea, the concept, the Begriff. Der Begriff? Yeah, thought so. El Shachachomim Echmiru Bay. That what? Chometz is also b'mashahu. Right? Chometz is also even the smallest amount. Number 1, Chometz is only also the smallest amount on Pesach, not before. And that's something which I don't know if we'll get enough time to look at. Right? But that Chometz is also b'mashu is midrabanon. El shachachomim ichmiru boy. Chachomim were machmir, given to izbei kores for 2 reasons. Number 1, because if chas v'shalom somebody eats bacon or basa b'cholov, it's a lav. Chometz on Pesach is b'kores. Therefore, they were more machmir, and they acknowledge that min haTorah, of course, bittul works on chometz. So if you've got 1 in 60, it's bottle min haTorah. But chachomim were machmir. Why? Number 1, because of chumrah de chometz, because it's koris. And number 2, because le bedila minei kula shata. We're not talking about bacon where you would never put a piece of pork in your mouth. We're talking about something which yesterday I ate. It was a mitzvah. Challah, Shabbos, Weetabix, whatever. It's fine, it's kosher. And all of a sudden it becomes osa.
That's the machlekes with libur, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know whether we'll get to that. Well, yeah, we have to also, yeah, to some extent, correct. V'yesh ha'imrim, mishum davar jovel sheyesh le matirin, la'achar Pesach. And this is another whole reason, this is another massive topic. Are you familiar, have you learnt yet davar sheyesh le matirin? So there is a concept. Sorry? Okay, but do you know what that phrase means? Davar sheyesh le matirin means something which at some point in time will become mutter, is not in. Yes, correct. So for those reasons, so that isn't bottle, and for those reasons, chometz is. So we've laid down the following rule: the concept that chometz is also b'mashu is itself midrabanan. In HaTorah, of course, it is bottle b'shishim like everything else. Okay, now. Right. Yeah, I'm just trying to run through what. I will leave you with the sources, with the notes here. And the next thing to notice, by the way, is that when we say chometz is b'Pesach is also b'mashu, that's only on Pesach,
right, but
not before. And this becomes a whole separate topic, which we're not going to get enough time to go into, which is if you had some chometz which was bottled before Pesach, is it chozer v'neir? Does it remain bottled forever, or does it raise its ugly head again? And on Pesach, now that it's b'mashu, so you get the metaphor, and and now it's not bottled again. And that's something the Shulchan Aruch talks about, possibly the difference between lach b'lach, or we're not going to have time. I just wanted to make you aware of that concept. We're not going to get to it today. Okay? So let's go a little bit further. Let's look here at source 4, which is the Mechaben Tov Mem Beis, Hapas Atzma She'ifsha V'nifsal Milechol HaKelev U'melugma She'nisrucha Einoi Chayev Leva'er. Bread that has become moldy to the point that it is a dog would not eat it. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Source 5. This is true when it becomes moldy before the Zman Ha'issa. If it became moldy after the time that it was, you should have stopped eating it or owning it. Given that you had a chiyuv to get rid of it and you didn't, the fact that it subsequently becomes inedible doesn't help you.
So Nisura is the Shal Hamish, it's not actually Pesach.
Correct. Well, you see, yeah. Milecha lekelev. If something is also milecha lekelev, to also in a chayev bebiur to have rakafra de alma, because then it's like it doesn't have the status of food anymore. Avalim loy nifsal me'achilas kelev. But what would be if it wasn't nifsal me'achilas kelev? Af shela odom niskalkel ve'enoi ra'oi. Even though no human being would eat it, mikol mokem adayin chayev levair kachomets gomor. You still have to get rid of it, like chomets gomor. Why? Mishum sheroi lechamea bo isois acherois. Because you could use it as a starter, as a culture, to create other isois. That's seir. Okay. Fine. So that's an important note, that if you didn't get rid of it when you should have done, then it was if it even though it became moldy afterwards, because you had a chiyuv of beer, you've got to make sure to get rid of it. Now I want to rush on to one of the next things, which is what I was mentioning to you before, because this is something that you really need to know. Okay. Davar 6 says the Shulchan Aruch. Davar shenis arav by chometz ve'enei machal adam klal. What would be something is taroives chometz. It has chometz in it, but it's not food.
Perfume.
What?
Perfume.
That's a separate shaila, maybe. That's even less. That's a chumrah. It's based on a Rosh. I think Achshavei, Ramesh Feinstein. We're not going to get into that today. Well, we kind of do a little bit, I suppose, the concept of achshavei. So something in which there is mixed in, chometz is mixed into it, says the Shulchan Aruch. But it's not a machal adam, it's not food. Or, she'ena machal kol adam. Or, not everybody would eat it. You go in tariyaka, okay, it's about. Afal pi shemuta lekaimoi, osa la'ochle ad achara Pesach. There are things which you are allowed to own, but not to eat. Okay? You can keep it, but you can't eat it. Even though it only has a small amount of chometz in it, you can't eat it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, source 7, even though it's not edible, but by eating it, you elevate it to the status of food. Okay? And this was, without going into the detail, Rav Moshe Feinstein's, I think it's fair to say, chumrah. Not everybody holds of it, that perfume should also not be used on Pesach. Did you know, for example, that perfume, when you, if you import perfume, it has to come with a certificate that the alcohol content within it is what's known as denatured alcohol, denatured ethyl alcohol. So you don't have to pay customs on it as an alcohol. So it is treated as denatured ethyl alcohol. Now, alcoholics will still drink that. Yeah, I suppose if you are desperate enough, probably not a good idea to, Chanel number 5, it's probably cheaper to get some beer or something. But and the question is since and this is according to Rav Moshe Achshavei, that you have a person has the ability to elevate its status and consider it food, even though that's only a very tiny, not very well segment of the population. So he was machmir, for example, with perfumes. Not everybody is, but there is. You need to be aware of this concept. So I'll tell you where this is relevant. This can be relevant in medicines, because a medicine is not a machal. Now it has to be. Obviously, it's not. Nobody would say a medicine is a machal, but you're not eating it for the taste. But if it has a chometz component in, that's why you do need to be careful with all the reputable kashrus agencies provide lists of different which medicaments are kosher for Pesach. Even though you could argue, well, it's not a machal. Nobody would say, oh, I'm hungry, I'm going to have an ibuprofen, or whatever it is. Of course not, but that's not the point. The point is you have willingly chosen to consume it, and therefore, actually, it's given the status of food. Even though the halacha l'maisa, just be aware that the vast majority of capsules and tablets as such do not contain any chametz in them, are not considered chametz usually. However, there are some, especially kids' medicines, which are sweet and that can have the starch in it, can have real proper chametz, and it's made to taste nice, and then that's where there really are some major problems. Okay, let's leave out, because what I want to get to is the number 10 here is a very important Mishnah Berurah. Okay? A really important Mishnah Berurah, and this is what I was mentioning to you before. I think there's stuff missing. I think it didn't print out everything. But let's have a look at this Mishnah Berurah. This is a really important Mishnah Berurah. Ochein be'emes yesh machloikas bein hapoiskim bezeh. De das harbe poiskim, da afilu pochus mikazayis tzorich bil. There's a machloikas hapoiskim, whether if you own less than a kazayis, do you need to get rid of it? I own less than a kazayis. Okay? Do I need to get rid of it? Or is the Isser of Bal Yeroeh, and this is again a whole Shaila Chatzi Shiur by Bal Yeroeh, is a favorite topic for Rabbonim to talk about on Shabbos HaGodel drashas, because the Isser of the Shiur of Bal Yeroeh is a Kazayas. So do I have to, if I know that I only own half a Kazayas, do I have to get rid of it? Min HaTorah. So he says that's a machlokes. Das halbe poiskim, da viele pochus mikzayis, tzorich biur. You'd have to get rid of it. That may not be min HaTorah though, but you'd have to get rid of it. Now these are the words that you need to know. V'davka kasheroi la'achila ktsas. The only time you need to get rid of half a biscuit, one bizli, is if it is somewhat edible. Avolim hoya metunaf ktsas, but if it is a bit dirty, Mishnah Berurah is using his words very clearly, a bit dirty. I would argue that would apply to any. This is what I was referring to before. This is the makor for what the show that I put on before. This is the makor. If you have less than a kazayas on the floor, which by definition is metunaf ktsas. If it's metunaf ktsas, u pochus mikazayis, ein tzorich levaer lekula alma. Everybody would agree there is no chiyuv of biur.
Do you have to take it away?
No, that's what he just said.
No, but biur is... Yes.
Biur and bedika, the bedika is just to facilitate biur. Okay. You do not, and therefore you don't need to check. You need to check. So that's why when you're looking on the floor, what are you looking for? You are looking for a kazayas of chametz. Because if it's less than a kazayas of chametz on the floor, by definition, anything that's on the floor is metunaf ktsas.
So people check their books.
That's another shmooze. You're confusing. The question is it metunaf? Is something, what?
So much work.
I personally don't. I am somech on those that say they don't. I'm a bit more careful with what I do with the Svarim on Pesach. There's they say a story. Let's just finish this. I want to emphasize this point. This Mishnah Berurah is one you need to know. Remember, let's go back to what we started with Reb Moshe. In the kitchen, if it's not on the kitchen floor, then you need to be worried about crumbs. Why? Because we're talking about achila, not owning. When you are in an area where food makes its way into the food chain, kitchen surfaces, cutlery, pots and pans, etc., surfaces, there you have to be very, very machmir. That's where all your energies go, in the kitchen, making sure that the surfaces, that chas v'shalom, you will not come to eat even a crumb of chametz on Pesach. Chametz on Pesach is also b'mashu. We do not eat any chametz on Pesach, and there you need to put all your energies in the eating. The owning bit, the biur bedika bit of it, If it is less than a kazayas and somewhat a bit dirty, ein tzorach lo. You could even leave it there over Pesach. You have a bisli here, bisli there, a bisla, bishon, bisli over here, there, everywhere. You could theoretically leave it. Now, there's a separate shaila maybe whether it would be, whether it's a mitzaref, but if let's say you've got one bisli, that's all you've got, is there on the floor. You could leave it there the whole of Pesach. Theoretically, I'm not suggesting you should, of course. The point that we're making is that insofar as, so people have limited time and energy and resources, mental resources, koyach, direct and focus them where it is important, which is in the kitchen, which is make sure that you're not going to come into contact, chas v'shalom, and eat the smallest amount of kazayas, of chometz on Pesach. However, the putting a toothpick in your door handles and in the crevices inside your chairs and whatever is pretty much a waste of time. When was the last time you saw somebody licking off their chair or eating or...
Just a child now.
Doesn't happen. So it's important, and again, this is very, very short, and it's just a few maramakomas. We have not done this in depth. It's just... I've also got another YouTube video on it, which you can go and look at, which is in a little bit more detail, but these are some of the sources, so you can take these away, and Chag Kosher v'Sameach.